It's Weird Medicine, the first and still only uncensored medical show in the history of broadcast radio and the longest running show on this channel. I'm Dr. Steve with my little pal, Dr. Scott, the traditional Chinese medicine provider, who gives me street cred with the wacko alternative medicine assholes. Hello, Dr. Scott.
Hey, Dr. Steve.
And we got my partner in all things, Tacey. Hello, Tacey.
Hello.
This is a show for people who never listened to a medical show on the radio. If you've got a question you're embarrassed to take to your regular medical provider, or if you can't find an answer anywhere else, give us a call at 347-766-4323. That's 347-POO-HEAD. Visit our website at drsteve.com for podcast medical news and stuff you can buy. I can't mention contractually. Most importantly, we are not your medical providers. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. Don't act on anything you hear on this show without talking over with your doctor, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, pharmacist, chiropractor, acupuncturist, yoga master, physical therapist, or whatever. All right, very good. Don't forget to check out Dr. Scott's website at simplyherbals.net. That's simplyherbals.net. Everything going okay over there, Dr. Scott?
Yes, sir. Going well, thank you. 'Tis the season for allergies, that's for sure.
It's the best CBD nasal spray in the world, in my opinion. That's my opinion. No scientific, studies have been done to back that statement up. But we did have somebody call, and I know I've told this story before, that said that they bought somewhere else and said it sucked. So there you go.
That's all we need. That's all we need.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Very good. Okay. So, hello, everyone.
Hello.
A couple of things. If you look at our Patreon, it's patreon.com/weirdmedicine. When I was doing, I still am. I'm doing some work for Normal World with Dave Landau.
Okay.
One of the things, they send in questions, and then I answer them. The last one was on urethral sounding, and I tried to make it as gross as I could, because when they're gross, they can't not talk about it after it's over. Mm-hmm. They can't just go, okay, well, let's talk about Kim Jong-un next. It stops the conversation cold. Like the next one's on asparagus piss. That might engender some discussion about, well, can you smell asparagus piss? But the one on Fournier gangrene, spoiler alert, being the worst way to die, or this one on urethral sounding, which sounding is when you take some instrument and put it in the urethral meatus, aka the cock hole, and stick it down into your bladder. Now, the term sounding comes from, and just go watch it on Dave's show. It was on this last Thursday, but, and I'll end up posting the video by itself eventually, but, sounding comes from the nautical term, where they would take, knotted ropes,
okay,
and they would put them over the side of a boat, and then they could measure how deep the water was, probably in the sound or whatever. Okay. And they could tell if they were in deep water or too shallow to proceed, that kind of stuff. And then in medicine, we use the term sounding anytime that we're trying to see how deep something is remotely by sticking a stick in there, sort of thing, a rod of some sort, a rod into your rod. And so people started doing this stuff. And then what happens is they go, whoop, 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 and it slips, and it's, and then it slips in, and they can't get it back out. Now, this is not like shoving something up your rear end and getting it stuck. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you might be able to get it out and avoid a trip to the emergency room. When you let go of something and it goes up your urethra and you can't see the end of it to pull it back out again, it's going to be removed surgically.
Yep.
And that you can't, there's no sort of fiction that we all agree on like we do with ass foreign objects, because you could just say, well, I've sat on it, and that's just say you sat on it.
Million to one, doc.
No one will
know.
No one will. Well, they'll know, but they won't say anything. It's sort of a way to save face. But there's no way you can just say, well, I somehow walked into my cell phone cord and now it's in my bladder. It just, there's no, so you're just going to have to say I was messing with myself and lost this thing. So don't do that. Yep. They make things. They even sell them at Amazon. Oh, wow. So yes. And they have a bulbous end so you can't lose it in your bladder. Some people get sexual pleasure out of this. There are downsides. You can perforate your urethra. You can get an infection in there. There's all kinds of things that you can do. So if you're going to engage in this sort of activity, then read up on it. Find out the safe way to do it if you're so inclined. Even talk to your primary care if you want to, but know what you're doing before you do it and use an instrument that's made for it.
Right.
As opposed to like a stick.
Yeah.
Because people do that. One guy was shoving wasps up his, urethra. It's like, why would you do such a thing?
Wasps?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Just to be weird.
Yeah. I thought the plug-in cord for an Apple phone was weird enough.
Well, this thing that I did for Normal World has X-rays of that. Jeez. And it's like hey, you think I'm kidding? Here's an X-ray of a guy who shoved his cell phone cable up his urethra and it had to be removed surgically. Here's a guy that shoved 82 magnetic balls in there and couldn't get them out, and they had to be retrieved surgically. Do you see a pattern?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, was it the record number of metal balls being
I think
shoved?
The record number was 87. And it was a 10-year-old kid.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Metal balls can be very dangerous for little kids, by the way. Yeah. If they swallow one, not a big deal.
Right.
But if they swallow two and they get separated, like, if they stick together and they go through together, the kid will be okay. Mm-hmm. But if they swallow one today and then another one tomorrow or 4 hours later and they get separated, now one of them is traveling into the small bowel, the other one's behind it. And when they pass by each other, in different loops of bowel, what's going to happen?
Right.
Dink!
Yeah, they'll stick.
It locks them together and you get a bowel obstruction. Yep. So metal balls, don't give those to kids. They're not kidding. That's a swallowing risk. Okay. Fun fact from your old pal, Dr. Steve.
Goodness gracious.
All right, Tacey, you got some things for us today?
I sure do.
Well, let's do it.
It's Tacey's time of topics. A time for Tacey to discuss topics of the day. Not to be confused with Topic Time with Harrison Young, which is copyrighted by Harrison Young and Area 58 Public Access. And now, here's Tacey.
I probably need to go ahead and just shorten that at some point.
I like it.
Oh, you do?
Go ahead and just grab a cup of coffee today, my friends. Article 1. Could this toad psychedelic venom be the next big thing in antidepressants?
Uh-oh.
Behold the Colorado River toad.
Okay.
Also known as a Sonoran desert toad. These bulbous fellows pack a psychedelic
make up your mind.
punch
You live in the desert or in the river?
just below the surface. Their venom, which can secrete through glands on their skin, contains a hallucinogenic compound, which the scientists behind a new study say could be a potent antidepressant.
Is that right?
Psychedelics have received a lot of attention in recent years for their potential in treating severe depression. Psilocybin of magic mushrooms fame is a big hitter in this arena, with a growing body of research leading scientists to conclude it could be a game changer for some of the hardest to treat cases.
Wow.
Now there's a new psychedelic in town, and it comes all wrapped up in a nice amphibious package.
It's
a
actually,
new study?
I'm sorry, the psychedelic is 5-MeO-DMT.
If you would let me that's in the very next sentence. A new study has investigated a modified form of the compound 5-MeO-DMT.
Okay.
There you go.
A relative of DMT that's extracted from the venom of the Colorado River toad.
Huh.
It could be an effective treatment option for depression and anxiety. It's long been understood that this toad's venom can cause intense hallucinations and trippy experiments. That's why authorities constantly telling us, don't lick them.
Right. You remember the Beavis and Butthead when they they just cut to him, and one of them had a toad in his mouth, and he was just, it had his ass end in his mouth, and he was just sucking on it. It's a tryptamine psychedelic. Go ahead.
Okay. But how the toads produce their psychoactive slime remains a bit of a mystery, and there are questions to be answered about how the compounds act on the human brain.
Sure.
So they set out to investigate how 5-MeO-DMT interacts with a type of serotonin receptor called the 5-HT1A receptor.
Yes, and that's a serotonin receptor. What's weird is that there's a plant that makes the exact same thing. So you got a toad that makes it and then a plant that makes it. It just shows how nature is pretty efficient when it needs a molecule for something. It doesn't always just reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
It's the seeds of, Anandananthera peregrina seeds. Yeah. And it's heat stable. It can be smoked or insufflated. In other words, snorted. Lasts between 10 minutes for the former if you smoke it, or 2 hours for the latter. And the effects range from radical perspective shifting and perception of new insights, euphoria, immersive experiences, dissociation, and non-responsiveness. In other words, it makes people, stop talking and responding to people.
That's probably
sensual and erotic enhancement. No. Now listen, anytime there's a new technology, they will co-opt it for porn. And if they find out that this stuff enhances sexual pleasure or the ability to function, that's going to be the first thing that gets patented. All the poor depressed and anxious people out there are just going to have to wait if this is the real deal. But anyway.
So it says most research on psychedelics up to now is focused on 5-HT2A, which is also a serotonin receptor.
Right.
Because its key ability to produce hallucinations. Previous research has shown that 5-HT1A was worth a closer look when it comes to developing new and improved antidepressants, but not much was known about how psychedelics interact with the receptor.
Yeah, this stuff's been around for a while. The Church of the Tree of Life, which was a church in California in back in the day in the 70s, they used 5-MeO-DMT as a sacrament. And it was available to their members, and apparently they smoked it on parsley. It was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They tested this stuff with a mouse model of depression.
I wonder how they do that. How do you know if a mouse is depressed?
I don't know. They compared it to LSD as well as existing drugs that target 5-HT1A and found that the toad venom compound had a similar antidepressant and anti-anxiety effect without getting the mice high.
Okay, we got to look up mouse depression. How do they know that?
I don't think just depleting someone of serotonin in your brain is going to necessarily make you depressed. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not going to make you feel good.
You're not going to necessarily feel good, no. But maybe they just have a strain of mice that.
Yeah,
oh man, they look really depressed.
Okay, here we go. Animal model of human behavior represents complex of cognitive and emotional processes. Okay, a behavioral test developed primarily and specifically to verify and support a theory of cognition or emotion. Okay, this paper reviews tests commonly used in novel drug research, focuses especially on tests which can evaluate anxiety-like and depression-like behaviors. Okay, forced swim test, a tail suspension test, and a sucrose preference test. So I guess if they figure if they're depressed, then they may want more sweets.
Yeah, I was going to say they probably eat more sugar.
Yep, and then their tail, if they're depressed, they're dragging their tail.
Yeah, dragging their tail.
That's something.
That's crazy.
I used to go to this place. It was it doesn't matter. It's a town not too far from here where they now have a casino. And back in the day, you could put a quarter in in this machine, and it would play music, and a chicken would come out and dance. And apparently it was Pavlovian, and they would just feed it corn, and it would scratch, and it looked like it was dancing and put it on a turntable. But then I read that they do these like chicken and mouse pain things where they put them on a hot plate and they see how long it takes them to start dancing around.
Oh, geez.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, it is awful.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, hell, tried to scurry away from the heat.
yeah, it's poopy.
That's not good.
All right. That's a good one, Taste.
Good one,
What else
Taste.
you got? So we'll look out for 5-MeO-DMT.
Great,
Yeah.
Great one.
Toad stuff. So the second one is kind of sad. Well, it is sad. Man who receives first pig kidney transplant dies.
Yeah.
So they let him out, and we talked about that. And 2 months after his operation,
What did he die
he
from?
died. Well, he was 62. He was suffering with end-stage kidney disease before undergoing the operation in March.
Right.
There's no indication that the death was a result of the transplant.
He was just sick as hell. That's why they did such an
Kidney
experimental
failure.
transplant on him in the first place.
Transplants of other organs from genetically modified pigs have failed in the past, but the operation on Mr. Slayman has held as a historic milestone. In addition to kidney disease, he suffered from type 2 diabetes and hypertension. He had a human kidney transplant, but it began to fail after 5 years.
Yeah.
After his pig kidney transplant on March 16th, his doctors confirmed he no longer needed dialysis after the new organ was said to be functioning well.
That's incredible.
He will be forever seen as a beacon of hope to countless transplant patients worldwide, and we are deeply grateful for his trust and willingness to advance the field of xenotransplantation.
Says here that they're quite convinced it had nothing to do with the kidney.
I was saying, certainly they could do post-mortem on the kidney and see if the kidney was functioning
Sure.
pretty well, yeah.
I'm going to turn Tacey's microphone off for a second. She's getting a phone call. They went 7 weeks. The family said, hey, we're grateful the 7 extra weeks that we got because he was basically dying when they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And with all of the things that he had, I'm guessing that he probably had a myocardial infarction or a stroke. But that is incredible.
Yeah.
And you know how many people are waiting for a transplant right now?
Gosh,
It's about 100,000.
I'd say 100,000. That was my guess. Yeah.
And thousands will die every year before they get their transplant. So, this is a good step in the right direction. To have these genetically modified pigs. Now the PETA and the vegans are not going to be happy with just slaughtering pigs wholesale.
No.
But we do anyway. I mean, just go to the grocery store.
Until one of them need a kidney.
Well, maybe.
I would think.
If they stand by their principles, they won't do it. But this is one step in the right direction. What we really want is to be able to grow these from our own cells in a vat somewhere.
Right.
If you've got enough time, if you know you're going to have it down the road, then you just grow the damn thing. If it takes 6 months to grow, then we just have to back up when we start these things.
Wouldn't it be incredible to be able to do genetic testing on someone? So you know what, when you're 28, you're going to need a liver or
let's get your
let's go ahead and start it now.
Let's get it in the bank.
Let's get some cells going. And gosh,
I agree. That would be cool.
That'd be really neat.
Or just give us robot bodies.
There you go.
Yep.
You can see Dr. Steve walking around with his head only on a robot body.
Yeah.
He'd look like some kind of
Little squiggly
Greek
legs.
god. No, he would be like have big muscular legs.
You think I would do that?
Oh, I know you would. I know you
I'm on a hoverboard, just float around, just be a head floating around.
Oh, that would be great.
Get off my lawn, you shitheads.
Well, it says that
So stupid.
Rick said that one of the reasons he underwent this procedure was to provide hope for the thousands of people who need a transplant to survive. He accomplished that goal, and his hope and optimism will endure forever.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
We really appreciate it.
He was a kind-hearted man with a quick-witted sense of humor who was fiercely dedicated to his family, friends, and coworkers.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Good man.
Sure,
two other
procedures.
patients have received pig heart transplants, but those procedures were unsuccessful as the recipients died a few weeks later.
Well, that's coming.
Yeah, they'll be soon.
So, yeah,
All right. Good. Good one, Taste. What else you got?
that's all I got.
Oh, you got